the book launch of Ineke Botter, my very dear friend, who's recently published an amazing book called Your Phone, My Life. I really think it's a wonderful book for people that are interested in adventure and understanding how the telecommunications industry has evolved around the world. And I'd like to welcome Ineke, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Jeroen. Thank you for introducing and thank you for hosting this webinar. You've done the first one as well for people who were participating then. And I think it was great fun, so thanks for that again. Sorry that we had a bit of problems last week, but this week it will be hopefully much better. So let me introduce my other panel members. And I think I'll start with the one that I know for the longest time. That is Mohammed Kaze. Mohammed worked for the supplier whilst I was in Kiev. And we met basically because he was ill. I think that was it, because he didn't work for the same project, but we became very good friends afterwards. And we've even worked on projects later on as well. So Mohammed has experience with the supplier side of telecommunications, but also he does a lot of consultancy in the telecom space. And today he is pitching a project, a 5G project in the Netherlands as a newcomer, which is a bit of a hassle, I think, but hopefully we'll get there. So the second panel member that I would like to introduce is Kevin. And I hired him as my successor in Kosovo when I left there back in 2004. And again, not only was a good successor, but also we have worked over the years, by the way, also with Mohammed and Kevin and myself on projects. Kevin is a very experienced CEO in the mobile industry and worked all over the world, Middle East, Africa, and other nice challenging situations, which is our forte by now, I say. And I'd like to introduce the fourth panel member, who I know since 2009, and that's Krasi. And Krasi was my chief commercial officer in Baxel in Baku. And after he left Baku, that is now some years ago, of course, he set up an IoT company in Bulgaria together with partners. And he is also a company that develops value-added services for the telecoms mobile industry. So, and then, of course, going back to Jeroen, because he didn't introduce himself yet, I know Jeroen not as long as Mohammed, but also quite long by now. And we worked together in another project in Uganda, and that was a project for education, and basically an interactive audio-based education platform that really developed. And since then we always kept in contact and we speak a lot. And I'm, as I said, very pleased that Jeroen will host this session yet again. Thank you, Jeroen.
Thank you so much, Ineke. And welcome everybody. I see a lot of people are joining from all over the world. It's really, really exciting. And we want to make it as fun as possible this afternoon. So I'm going to start by asking a few questions to the panelists, and we're going to make it as interactive as possible. And if you'd like to participate, please ask any questions at the end. I would love that as well. I'd like to start by asking Mohammed, since that we started with him, when did you start working in the mobile industry and where specifically? You're on mute, Mohammed.
Yes, so this is better, I think. So I started working in the mobile industry later in 1996. I started in the telecoms industry in 1988, working for what was called AT&T Network Systems International here in Hilversum, the Netherlands. And as Ineke mentioned, that company was also the supplier of the first international gateway switch to Ukraine. So, and that was about the same time that Ineke was working on the mobile part of Ukraine. But then in 1996, I joined KPN Mobile in the Netherlands. And this is where I switched from fixed network to mobile network. and then even to satellite network, working for the satellite division of Kiev.
Amazing. Awesome. Lots of experience, lots of fun. Ukraine's very topical these days, right? So,
Oh, yes. Yes.
yeah. Anyway, Gavin, it's great to host you. Please tell us, when did you start in the telecoms industry, mobile industry? I mean, Ineke mentioned you've got extensive experience and you took over from her, but I'm sure if you could share more with us, that will be great.
Yeah, thanks, Jeroen. I started in telecoms in 1990 in Bangladesh, and then I was working for Cable and Wireless then, and moved into mobile in Pakistan in 1991. So we set up the first mobile operator in Pakistan, and it's just so interesting. Plan.
Gavin, you're not very audible.
One of the first things I did was, can you hear me?
We can hear you, but we lost you a little bit. Did everybody hear him okay? Or was it just on my side? I think, yeah, okay, good. We can hear you better now. Okay, great, thanks.
Okay. Yeah, one of the first things I had to do was review the business plan, and I resubmitted it to London. I was told it was absolutely ridiculous to put any more people on our projection of subscribers. Anything more than 20,000 was just out of the question. And when you think it's not that long ago, and that's a good indication of just how far we've come. But anyway, so that's where I started in the mobile industry.
Amazing, amazing.
Okay, back to you.
Yeah, thank you. And Gresme, maybe you could give us some background to your experience in the telecoms industry.
Basically, it was very interesting because that was my first international assignment on telecom. I had many assignments on fast-moving consumer goods, where I spent the first half of my professional life. After the fast-moving consumer goods business, I moved to telecoms in Bulgaria for a startup company, Vivatel. And after the sale of Vivatel to AIG, I looked around, and there was that opportunity. I got a call one day. I still remember the call, that somebody called me from Moscow, and I was thinking, why the hell they're calling me from Moscow? And they were talking about former Soviet Republic without telling me the details. So, and it came out that some of my friends were already there in Baku, and this is how I landed for an interview in Baku with Ineke and the management team. And then what happened was one of my best professional experiences in my life. I worked for 3 years for Baxel, for Ineke, and it was one of the most rewarding times as a professional that I had. I have to say that in the beginning, Ineke was very much on top of every move you make. So I was thinking, how am I supposed to work into this environment? I mean, she's asking for every cent, she's asking for every small move. And then what you see, actually, she's supporting you, helping you move forward. And the more you worked with her, there was a lot of confidence built between us at the management team. And we helped her spend more time on the things she had on her plate and less on the things we were doing. So that was one of the very successful formulas. I mean, for us, she was the person who was the biggest resource. And I have to say, in all my time in the company, I have never felt any pressure from shareholders, owners, or anything. I know there was pressure, and not only one time, and she was like a wall, you know, not allowing any problems come to us, only good things. And I'm very grateful for that experience. I learned a lot, and I'm very happy that we still keep in touch. So that was the first experience I had in Azerbaijan, and later on I came back to work for other mobiles as well. So based on the experience that she led in Azerbaijan, even the other mobiles recruited me to do rebranding for them as well.
Amazing. It's nice that you speak about hands-on management, but filtering all the shareholders' issues. I think it's so important. And I think in the telco industry, we always notice the people that have experience always get grabbed, you know, and they move around a lot from the different operators, especially here in South Africa, where we've got like a talent shortage, which is, yeah, some interesting points. Ineke, why don't you share with us your background in the telecoms industry and what was the most difficult situation that you had to deal with? You know, I'd like to hear that, which is quite an interesting question. Yeah.
Okay. Well, the way I got into it, and I have to say that the book is dedicated to a friend of ours, a friend that Mohammed knows and I know, and unfortunately he died quite some years ago now. But that friend that came to my office, I was doing satellite communications. That was my first step. I worked in the finance industry in London, and I came back to the Netherlands, and I didn't want to do that anymore. And so I did satellite for a bit. And then this friend of ours, Luke, he came to my office. He says, oh, we heard you're a very good business person. Why don't you help us? We're going to do mobile in Ukraine. I go like, what? How can that be? Because it was still the USSR. You know, it was the Soviet Union. And there was no way that people could talk to each other over the phone. There was hardly any phones anyhow, penetration maybe 7% or so. So this minister who invited us to do that project, which is now today Vodafone Ukraine, by the way, we set it up, and with very few people, only very, very few. But that was a very difficult situation, because you can imagine, you know, there was no, Mohammed knows as well, no food, no drink even 1 week. And we only had bottled water, and it was salty, so you got more thirst than that it solved. And there was absolutely nothing. So there was a famine going on, and we, even though we were in the best hotel of Kiev, we were also suffering. But I thought that was very, very, very difficult at the time, which it was. But later on, my life was much more difficult than that, because when I went to Lebanon, initially it was nice and quiet after a lot of civil unrest in Kosovo. I thought, oh, this is a good assignment. No problems. Problems start, of course, very, very fast. And the first very big problem, I should say, disaster, and a man-created disaster, was when they assassinated Prime Minister Hariri. And that was a very, very tough situation for us, because as a mobile operator, you also have to help, of course, with the investigations. And that I did for 4 years, and it is in the book, so I'm not going to tell all that. But that was very, very tough. And then after we just got back on track, then we had the war in 2006. And that again, and we spoke about it a bit in the last session, is extremely difficult, because a telecoms operator, and we were the biggest, is of course a strategic target as well, and you in particular. So yes, those are very, but we're still here. We're still here. You know? You learn on the road.
Yeah. We call them school fees. We learn a lot from all these challenges, and when we triumph and we get to the other side, we look at it as a very positive experience often, I think. Yeah. Very interesting. And Mohammed, what was your really tough situation that you had to deal with? I think, you know, people don't often speak about those things. It's always interesting to hear from everybody about what was tough for them. You're on mute, Mohammed. I think this is the most used sentence between pre-pandemic, you know, to now, is you are on mute.
Apart from dealing with the mute button, so I was lucky enough not to be in situations where there is no, you know, war-torn countries like Ineke was in, etc. But of course, Ukraine was a difficult period. It was, you know, the conditions were severe economically. It was turbulent time. The tension between Russia and Ukraine was already starting back then because they were negotiating about the Black Sea fleet and who should get it and how to divide the Soviet Union assets between the different countries. And coming winter time, Russia would always use the gas dependency of Ukraine coming from Russia to sort of pressure them. So they would cut off the gas supplies in order to make their point and to gain some leverage in their negotiation about the Black Sea fleet and other issues like that. And of course, everybody who is then in Ukraine is getting cold. And so I also got meningitis at a certain point because it was minus 20 or minus 25, and the heating wasn't working very properly. And well, maybe it was also a little bit my fault because I hadn't have the shapka, the traditional hat yet. And with my hairdo, as you can imagine, you can run into all sorts of issues there. So yeah, it was a tough time for me at least, but there are people who, like Ineke, who had suffered through even tougher periods.
Absolutely. And Krasmir, why don't you share with us your challenges and some of the things that you had to overcome in your career in the telecoms industry?
Kras is also on
Are you
mute.
talking to me?
No, I was talking to Krasmir. I didn't go in the order specifically. I wanted
I
to
thought you were.
mix things around a little bit. I was saying
But he's on
Krasmir-
mute.
Yeah,
He's on mute.
I can't see if he's on mute.
Yeah.
He is, yeah.
Yeah.
Could you hear me, Krasmir? I asked.
Yeah, the toughest thing, mine was more of a business nature, because what actually was happening is for years, Baxel had only a partial coverage of the country. And we wanted to become a national operator and to have more and more subscribers. So how do we make them test our network? And Ineke was day and night working with the CTO on building base stations. So we were thinking, how the hell are we gonna, make the people buy our SIM card, because at that time they were buying the SIM card, and test our services. So what we did was actually, we had a crazy brainstorming session. And then we decided that we're gonna put on each base station a red flag with the Baxel brand, And we had a big discussion what should be the textile we use, because Baku basically means land of wind. And there is always a very strong wind across the country. So anything we put on there, it would be blown away in days, it would be shredded. So finally we decided we go for textile that is used for the sails of the boats. And we started putting it up on the base stations, and there were thousands. And then we made a TV copy that the guys were jumping from an airplane, and from above, all the territory of the country was looking red. I mean, with the Baxel red, with the Baxel specific red, and they could see all around flags. And then, it was everybody remembered that advertising, everybody. And when you were driving along the road, you could see the flags down the road. When you were walking in the city, you could see the flags there. So that's how we solved that problem. And we had a significant increase in the number of subscribers in a very short time, which also helped us a lot with the revenues. And we were overachieving the numbers. And part of this was because of the advertising, of the good services. But the most difficult, of course, was building the network at such a speed that was never seen there. I mean, the CTO was hiring almost everybody in the building industry they could find to build this network. And for us, it was very challenging in a very short time to be able to advertise in a truthful way the network buildup, and that we are providing coverage in your area, and your area. So that was a big thing.
Amazing. Amazing. I think that Ramin, who's in the audience, remembers it clearly. He's just said
Yes.
center. That,
Yes.
yeah, absolutely.
Actually, he was in the advertising company. He was head of the advertising company at that time, and they were helping a lot with a lot of great ideas. I mean, I have to say the local people were so helpful, so smart people that it was really very pleasant and joy to work with them. And you don't feel you're not tired after a full week of like 10, 12 hours a day work with those guys, because they were really great people, both from the agencies and inside Baxel.
Amazing. Thank you, Krasmir. And Gavin, why don't you share with us a little bit about your challenges and maybe difficult situations that you had to overcome? Because I know that the telecoms industry is tough. I mean, I've also helped launch some operators in Namibia and in other markets, and it's always stressful. You know, there's shareholders' expectations. There's you guys experience wars. There's working with different suppliers. It's not a tough thing. And when people pick up their phone, which I think is what the book's all about, they just expect everything to work, right? But they don't understand all this background of everything that goes behind the scenes. So I think it's really interesting for the audience to hear all these things.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what's interesting is that one's attitude towards risk, as I'm sure the five of us, our attitude towards risk is quite different to each other. And part of that comes from experience. As you go to more countries, your appreciation of what is risky changes. So I suppose, if I just pick a couple of things that I found pretty challenging, I suppose. The first of all was in Kabul, when we were getting the actual network set up. We only took 6 weeks to launch the network from getting the stuff on the ground. And that, of course, it was partly due to a decision to only launch in Kabul, just cover the major areas, which enabled us to get things started quickly. And this is there were no telecommunications in Afghanistan. What fixed line network there had been robbed and stolen a long time before. So bringing a mobile network in was very it's new for everybody, and of course a lot of people flying in and out of Dubai, so they're familiar with the concept. And as you said earlier, there's an expectation. It's great. We're going to have Dubai level quality here in no time flat. Yeah, exactly. But when we started putting up the cell sites, we were using existing towers mainly, and they were not designed for telecoms. They were designed for other stuff. And I had a couple of the riggers came to see me and said, "We can't do this." And I said, "Well, what's the problem? Come and have a look." So you go and have a look at this tower, and half the legs are
we're losing it.
The guys who are climbing the towers. Anyway, we compromised. And instead of going up to the top, they climbed halfway up, which they were comfortable with. So some of these, and I mean, Kabul is full of stories, as you would expect. We were in there weeks after 9/11. My challenges were not so much about the network rollout, but more about dealing with either the physical environment or the political environment. I mean, Kabul I suppose the most frightening experience I had was when a bicycle bomb went off just outside the office. We were up on the 3rd floor, so we were not personally in any danger, but people are people. So the first thing they did was all shot down out into the street to see what was going on. And it was just at the time when the double bombs were being set off. So I had to rush out and get everybody back in. And sure enough, another one went off about 10 minutes later. And it's those sort of things that you develop antennae for realizing there is a potential danger here, because if one's gone off, there's going to be another one. And unless you've actually been, as Ineke will say, unless you've actually been in a war or a terrorist situation, you don't develop the antennae. You just don't. What's to teach you? You can't read it in a book. So I would say that was probably the worst, most difficult situation to deal with.
Yeah.
But and then there's all the political side, but I don't think we'll touch on that.
I'm sure that's quite sensitive, and it's difficult to focus on your work when there's bombs going around, I'm sure. Yeah, so that's fascinating. You know, I was part of the early days of the internet and mobile, and we just experienced bad quality of service while you were talking a little bit, and it's kind of reminded me as you were talking, and you know, we lost you a little bit as you know, we started with WAP. I don't know if you remember WAP on internet, you know, on mobile in 2000. Yep. And 9.6 kilobits per second on your phone, where a modem was 56K. I remember that the first ad for our company for digitalmall.com was, if you can't bring Mohammed to the mountain, we've got him right here, give him a modem. You know, it's fascinating for me that how that, you know, my girls grew up, you know, and they don't even know what a modem looks like, right? They grew into fiber, and there's just so many challenges. You know, quality of service is always a challenge in telecoms, you know, as you grow, and managing that and the number of base stations. And it's really, really great to hear all these wonderful challenges and how you've overcome them and what shaped the telecoms industry over the last couple of years. And yeah, I'm quite interested. We want to keep it humorous this afternoon. What was the funniest experience that you had? So maybe Ineke, you could lead and tell us about your funniest. There's a lot of them in the book, guys. You must buy the book.
Yeah.
Read it, yeah. Absolutely.
I mean, the book, it was you know, it was a constant jackal of bulls, because you have, you know, all the aspects of, as Kevin just said, the politics, but you have the danger, you have the fun. And what I didn't want to do with the book was very much not a technical book. I wrote a technical introduction because people were asking, but that was not at all the aim of the game. Yeah, going back to what was the funniest, I think, you know, I shared with Krasi a story that he will tell, but my second funniest maybe was then that when we were in Hungary, which is now Yettel, was Telenor for a long time, but we started it basically in the back of a car, and my colleague and I said, oh, if we win this license, how shall we call it? In the back of a car on the way to the airport. I said, what about Hungary GSM? Oh no, he says, you know what, let's do it the Latin way, pan on GSM. So it became pan on GSM, and we were only 2 people there. And within a space of nothing, we were hundreds of people. And we were 2 people, but the management team at one point was 4 people. And then we had already 40 employees in a month's time. But the same as in Afghanistan, we had a license that said you have to build all the cities and all the connecting highways in 5 months. But the problem is, of course, you can maybe build if you find enough personnel, but the suppliers also have to supply the kit to you. So that was a big challenge. Yeah. And then we just found a building to work in, because we started off literally in the office in a villa. And then we moved to a small little office in a bank. And then, so we moved offices every so often. And finally, Sonera, Telecom Finland International, sent someone. And a good Finn doesn't talk, right? So this one didn't talk either. I still remember his name. He was Jukka. And I like Finns very much because you can trust them. They do everything until they drop dead. So this Jukka, he came and he said, oh, I can do that. Then he started. But we were also very, very worried about company espionage. And we had reasons for that, of course. I had good reasons for that. And then he bought a very big shredder, which was new in those days. He put the shredder in the middle of the hallway and it says, everyone who has documents that don't need to be there, they go in the shredder. So he wanted to show how to do it, and his necktie went into the shredder.
So he shredded himself in the process, yeah, in his tie. Yeah.
And then he took a nail, because not everyone had seen it, of course. He took a nail, he nailed it on the wall, and he put one sticker underneath. Don't do this.
Brilliant.
It was
Brilliant.
very, very funny.
Lovely, lovely. And maybe, Gavin, if you could tell us about your funniest experience that you've experienced.
God, I've been racking my brains about this. I cannot think of a event or something that was that funny. The whole experience throughout my career, it's just been thoroughly enjoyable and a very happy time. But in terms of sort of standout, make you laugh moments, the things that make you laugh generally are stupid things, where you are, well, like that with the necktie. It's a stupid thing. But a moment's inattention. But generally, quite often, when you boil it down, you think, actually, that is a cultural issue where it's an unfamiliarity with the technology you're using. When, in Kabul, I can remember when we started to sell mobile phones, the guys would come into the sales unit, or their AK-47s over their shoulder, buy the phone, out they go, and they'd use it as a walkie-talkie. So, where do you change? Where's the button for changing to talk? And it was funny at the time, but actually, it's not funny. That is unfamiliarity, if you see what I mean. And many, many memorable stories are of that nature. But it was just hugely enjoyable, the whole experience. It really was, and still is. So I can't think of something really laugh out loud that, no, I can't.
Okay, no worries. But that's, you gave us some good, great insights there. And Mohammed, from your side, what was the funniest for you?
I got the microphone this time. Again, going back to Kiev or Ukraine, there was, I'm not sure if it's very funny. It is funny as an anecdote, but at that time it was more frustrating. You're living in a hotel for almost a year, and the only place to go is the big restaurant where they have the meals, and it's open at certain times, so you have to make sure you're within that window. But then you come there, and then you see it's fully empty. It's a complete, very big hall with maybe 100 tables, fully empty. And they ask, do you have a reservation? And you say, well, no, I just live in the hotel. Oh, sorry, no reservation. Everything is fully booked. And so you have to go find another way to do it. And then that is, let's say, the first hurdle. The second hurdle is once you are finally in, you get the menu, and then can I have this? Sorry, we're out of that one. This one, out of that one. This one, out of that one. And so basically you ask, well, what do you have? And then they say, well, we have steak with rice. So you say, okay, I'll get steak with rice. And they deliver you chicken with potatoes. It's also a
language barrier.
You realize how spoiled you are,
Yeah.
having certain service levels in the West, and you get to expect it, but it's not as automatic as you sometimes think it is.
Yeah.
It's also a lesson in humility, but at that time it's a bit frustrating, and in retrospect is somehow funny.
Absolutely. And Krasmir, please, will you share with us your funniest moment?
Actually, it is sort of funny, but it's also very much describing how the atmosphere we worked with and the stuff. I remember very well my first board meeting in Baku. It was about 3.5 months after I have joined the company, and Ineke, very detailed. She wanted to know every detail of what we're gonna say, what we're gonna do, stuff. I mean, every presentation, every slide, she wants everything to be perfect, you know, and that was her style, and she was spending so much time helping us improve on this one. And I was telling her, oh, don't worry, our results are good. And she said, we are Krasi, you don't understand, we're investing hundreds of millions here. So good results are not good. I mean, they have to be excellent because it's a huge investment. And I said, oh, no worry. So we were having the board meeting, you know, and most of the people on the board were Germans and Azeri, you know. Both of those are, I mean, those nations are so serious people. You know Germans, probably you don't know many Azeri, but you know Germans. And Azeri are really good business people. They're also very strong. So they're all serious. And I said, okay. I mean, you're gonna get it. So the board started, and about 45 minutes after the board started, there was a knock on the door. So everybody was like, oh, okay, what's happening? And I said, I'm sorry to disturb, but right now, every person in Baxel is getting a box of Raffaellos with a sticker. So it will take only 2 minutes. Can those folks come in? And you are board member, so you're Baxel, so you have to get your box of Raffaello as well. And I didn't wait for anybody to respond, so I opened the door, and I had two guys with 2 big cartons with Raffaellos coming in and giving everybody, you know, who was present, box of Raffaello with a sticker that was saying 178,000 brothers and sisters joined our family. And if you think about in the past, 20 to 30,000 new subscribers per month was a good result, you know? So everybody was like, oh, great. I mean, super, you know, this quarter, 178,000 new subscribers. And I would say, no. The last month, 178,000 subscribers. The previous was 120, you know, and we are tracking now almost 200,000. And then all the board went abyss, you know, you can't imagine what happened. You know, everybody was like, whoa, what happened? And then that was the easiest board I have ever had in my life, you know. Everything ran very smooth.
Once you got the numbers, right? I mean, that's
Yep.
Absolutely. So when you were talking about the Germans, it reminded me of the funniest moment that I probably had in my career. So I mentioned to you that we launched mobile commerce on WAP. Imagine it's 9.6 kilobits per second. You could only do payments, and if you remember, all the phones were like black and white, right? So there wasn't even color. And my company was doing online shopping on the phone, you know, so, you know, you could only show shares and maybe flowers and things that you didn't need to show the color because the internet was a lot slower than the modem, as I mentioned. And we went for FTSE listing, and I'm doing a roadshow to all of the different investors. I went with Deutsche Telekom. That's why I remembered the Germans. And I'm so worried that WAP is not going to work because it was so new on the network, and I had to put a local SIM card because there was no roaming on data yet or anything like that, you know. So I put a local SIM card at Deutsche Telekom, showing them how it works on their network. And, you know, it was like roll on those Nokia 7110s and click. And it was like the worldwide wait. And it was always like a huge stress whether it's going to happen or not. So like I'm waiting and I'm waiting and I'm waiting. And then it finally works, you know, it kind of like, I don't think many people even remember it kind of rolled around. There was a circle of the internet of the Explorer, and it would roll around. And then it finally happened. And, you know, the Germans are very serious. So I said to them, guys, don't worry, it's just the worldwide wait. And all of a sudden I got smiles from everybody. And it kind of broke the ice because all of us were really, really tense because that's what we were presenting. And the worldwide wait is stayed stayed with me ever since, you know, and at least now we've got fiber to the home, and we've got unbelievable speeds on mobile, you know, it's from 9.6 kilobits per second to a gig per second these days on 5G, which is really, really exciting. Which brings me conveniently to the next point of how you see the industry changing people's lives over the years, Ineke. I mean, you've seen it in different stages, maybe from web, it went to, you know, 2G to 3G to, you know, these days 4G, 5G. It's really transformed, and it's constantly moving. You know, there's discussions in Mobile World Congress this year around 6G and what is that going to mean to our lives, and how has it changed it? What does being connected mean to people, in your opinion?
Oh, I can sit a whole day here and tell you all the story, of course, yeah. But I think that, you know, what has changed, and especially in markets where there was no telephony whatsoever, is that, and the London School of Economics has done a lot of research, I remember that, and I used to quote that in conferences and speeches and all, because the telecommunications industry is the basis of any economy. So if you take that as a starting point, yeah, then you can say, okay, what is it that it has enabled people now to do then? And basically what we have done is, you know, we had a mobile, and you could talk, and that was about it. So already in 1992, by the way, we got SMS from Finland, thank you. And that was basically such an enormous progress already, because people could text each other. I did in board meetings. I always had make sure that I had a handheld where I could type. Yeah, I had Nokia, very small computers. I still have one somewhere in a museum. But if you see that you can discuss things easily, that you create freedom for people. Why was mobile so enormously successful in ex-communist countries? Is because they couldn't talk before, and now all of a sudden they could too. And the mobile was for the person, not for the household. It was for the person, and it created freedom for people. Now, and if you see in the markets where I live now most of the time in Uganda, people don't have to walk 20 miles anymore. Yeah, they can place a call. You have the apps for whatever you can imagine, education, health, banking. 5.5 billion people in this world have no bank account, but the money goes via the mobile. Half of the GDP in Kenya goes via mobile. That is $125 billion for you. Yeah, so if you look at it, mobile has evolved for me from a telecommunications, I mean, you know, communications, to a lifestyle. And the speed that we need is to support this lifestyle. And you see that it goes quicker and quicker. I remember, same as Kevin just told about, you know, 20,000 subscribers. In Hungary, we had a business plan for 30,000 subscribers by the end of the year. We launched in March 27. And basically we started and we sold 10,000 subscriptions on one Saturday. And that was a disaster. Yeah, because the whole company was not propagated for that. We didn't have the personnel to support it. We didn't have the equipment to support it. We didn't have the offices. We had nothing to support that. So just having negotiated the whole purchase of the network, I had to start again, making sure that, you know, Nokia is sending switches in containers. We later on in other countries, we had pump-up masts, because every prediction was an under prediction, but that has an enormous impact on what you do nowadays. Of course, it's more about, you know, evolving from generation to generation, but that is because the mobile industry supports your life, and it's not about communications anymore.
Yeah,
or
I agree with
not
you.
only. Yeah,
it's all about it. I think today it's so essential.
Exactly.
Youth, you know, they just can't live without it. You know, the credit card industry has noticed that you're talking about mobile payments, that if you lose your credit card, it might take you a day or two to report it stolen. But if you lose your mobile phone, you'll report it within 20 minutes, because you waiting for the next text, you're waiting to log on to social, you're looking to do all of these kind of things. So, you know, we're so attached to our phones. It's absolutely ridiculous. got some crazy stats about how much time people, how many times people actually look at their phone per day. It's over 100 times a day. It's crazy, you know. So it's, or sometimes they say even more than 50 times per hour, you know. So it's absolutely a dependency today, and I think I agree with you 100%. And very, very interesting. Sorry, Gavin, you were going to say, and I interrupted you about the importance of the mobile phone in our lives.
No, I was just agreeing with what you've been saying, and also Ineke. Yeah, in Pakistan, we were the first operators to launch we were using an analog network with nothing like GSM. And the second operator launched about 3 or 4 weeks after us, I think. And that 3 or 4 week period meant that we maintained our market lead right throughout the time I was there. But when we launched, I mean, talk about how not to do things. We launched without a billing system, and this is way before the days of prepaid, in the way that we understand it, scratch cards.
Oh, we lost Gavin all of a sudden. Maybe Mohammed, do you want to jump in quickly while Gavin sorts out? Oh, there we go. Gavin, are you back?
Hello.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Hello.
Great. Yeah, we can hear you.
I don't know what happened there. Okay. Yeah. So we launched without a billing system, and although we didn't have many subscribers, as I described, we had this group of people based around Lahore. We could tell where they were, and they just paid money in rupees. Then the following week they come and pay another 10,000.
It's exactly what we were talking about, the challenges in setting up quality of service in a telecommunications environment. And the worldwide wait. There we go. We're experiencing the worldwide wait. We're waiting for Gavin to come back to us. Sorry,
Hello.
Gavin. We lost you a little bit there. I think you have some.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Great. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So we had this group of super payers, even though we weren't sending out.
I think we have difficulty connecting.
We have difficulty hearing
Who they
you.
were, and half were Indian, half were Pakistani, and they were operating the smuggling lines across the border, and they could not afford not to have mobile communications. So that's an object lesson in actually the transformation effect, and you can see from. I mean, that's a niche market, I suppose. But to echo what Ineke is saying, you know, these are the early days. You could make a phone call. You couldn't send a text message. We added that a little bit later. It was a voice call, and that was all. So we can see today, you know, basically you run your life through your mobile. And one of my favorite questions of going into companies is to ask the question, right, who's your competitor? And they'll reel off 3 or 4 other mobile operators that are operating in the country and say, no, that's not right. That's absolutely not your competitor. Your competitor is anything that is taking people's attention away from their handset. So whether it's a football match, whether it's music, that's your competitor because they're not using the network. And it's like, oh, okay. And that once you get your head around that kind of concept, actually what you're saying is the transformation that has happened to your life is not just about making a phone call. As Ineke has said, it touches every single aspect of what you do. But understand what your market, what your competition is. Salutary lesson. Very interesting.
Very, very interesting. Yeah. And today I think mobile's taken over any industry, right? It's your music device, you watch movies on it, it's your wallet, it's your watch. I've noticed a lot of people stop wearing watches because they've got their mobile phone on them all the time. So they look at the time over there. So it's really transformed a lot of industries, and it's very interesting to see that. And yeah, really, Krasmi, I'd love to hear your
Actually, you guys are talking, you know, technology stuff, how it is transforming. Let me tell you a simple step we did. and it had a huge impact on the services, on what Baxel did for the community. In Azerbaijan, unlike Europe, but very much like in Africa, in many other countries, it's mainly prepaid. So significant part of the population could not afford to have significant top-up, and especially the young kids or the pensioners. So what we did, we looked into the experience of India, and we did small top-ups. I mean, basically it's like 10 euro cents, 5 euro cents, which was a significant, insignificant amount for even for a kid. And then the revenues absolutely increased in huge, because basically there were a lot of people that have kopecks in their pocket. They didn't have the dollars, the manats, they have the kopecks. And even a kid, you know, could top up on the street 10 euro cents or 5 euro cents and, you know, continue to be connected to his friends and stuff. And it changed the environment in a significant way, because actually it changed the culture. It changed the way people were using mobile. And as Ineke said, I mean, mobile was the thing that was putting together people. They were putting to communicate with each other, with relatives. The relationships are very strong there in Azerbaijan. So they talk a lot within the family, with their parents, grandparents. So, and that was, I mean, such a small step, allowing them to top up tiny amounts was significant step into our growth, but also the significance of the services that we were providing to the regular people. So that was huge.
Absolutely. I see some commentary from the webinar chat is very, very interesting. Ken Harris tried to get into a national park in Kenya and he could not pay with cash or card, only with M-Pesa, which is really interesting. It's totally transformed, which is amazing. And I think we've only got about 9 minutes left. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that the book covers. Please go download it from Amazon. I downloaded it on Kindle. Instant gratification. What a wonderful experience. And it's a really awesome book to read. I'd like to open up to the audience a little bit. I think there's quite a bit of chatter, and I don't know if there's anybody in the audience that would like to ask a question. While we wait for the questions, I'll just ask Ineke quickly, what was the best management lesson on the way that you felt you've achieved? You know, we spoke about school fees earlier. What was the best school fee that you paid, or best management lesson?
I think that my best boss, and I have said this in public and also just recently again in an interview, was Bessel Kok. Now, Bessel Kok is a very flamboyant Dutch, now Belgium, and he was the CEO. He invented with his team SWIFT. Yeah, the fact that you can send money, instantly. That was his invention with his team, as he always said, and my team. And then the other thing, he was reforming film studios in Berlin and Karlovy Vary, and he was, you know, with the Czech, he was playing chess, with Havel. President Havel all the time, and he's owning a cycling group, that is competing. And so if you look at all these things that he does, that is an awful lot, and he's 80 and he's still busy. And then that was, apart from my father, where I learned a lot from my father, but from him I learned a lot. I managed, first of all, my first adagio, keep it super simple. That's already learned from him. Second thing, Ineke, you make a shopping list. I want 7 points and I will add 3 other points. We have one meeting every 2 weeks and we discuss these points. Galas, that's it. You know, the clockwork that I install always. So Monday, Tuesday for this, Wednesday management meeting, Thursday, Friday for that. That is all from him. And if you look at that, you know, I looked at it, I studied it, I copied it, and it works. That's the best management level. lesson that you can get, and it didn't cost me a penny.
I love the KISS principle. I use it all the time as well.
Yeah.
Simplicity is the key to adoption, yeah? Mohammed, we haven't heard from you for a bit, so why don't you tell us about your best management lesson along the way?
Well, my best management lesson is that when you're speaking with customers, you have to realize that they don't always speak your telco lingo. The telco industry has its 3 letters abbreviations for almost everything.
Yeah, we call them TLAs, right? TLAs. 3 letters.
We sometimes forget that not everybody knows that and doesn't. Simple things that we take for granted, and we tend to just speak to everybody in that telco lingo because it's sort of an infectious disease that you have to realize that not everybody speaks that, and you have to translate it into normal spoken language, because everybody understands what technology does. They don't understand how technology works, but they know what technology does because it's just a service, it's a value add, and you sometimes forget about that. So you have to speak normal people language and not jargon language.
Exactly. Simplified for the business people and get better adoption rates that way, instead of us. Generally the IT industry, but the telecoms industry, as you rightfully said, all these WAP and GPRS and GSM and all of these things. Like, unless you're in the telco industry, you don't know what it is. You could be ordering some food in South America or something. Anyways. So.
I mean, you see it around you. How many mobile operators advertise very proudly, we now have 5G.
Yeah.
What does that mean for?
Yeah, exactly.
Actually, there were some great comments from the audience while we were kind of chatting around, how whether you lose your privacy or not, whether it promotes globalization or not. It's really interesting stuff, and I don't know if I'm pronouncing the name correctly, but Uching Barasa, I think it's the way you pronounce it, was saying, how in Kenya, you can't be without mobile money. It's basically transformed the other way completely, rather than, and it's moved to a cashless society, which is so much safer and so much better. And I love going to Kenya and using M-Pesa to pay for the taxi, and I don't have to worry about going to an ATM and getting the cash. It's really simplified lives, and I think we've all had some amazing lessons. We've got a couple more minutes. I don't see many questions coming up, so I'll ask you, Krasmir, to just let us know what your best management lesson was.
I learned many things from Ineke, but the one which is the key, keep it simple, stupid, was the one that works everywhere, in business, in private life, everywhere. If you cannot explain it in a simple way, you don't understand it well enough.
100%. That's what Warren Buffett says. If you can't explain it to a 5-year-old, you don't know your product very well.
So for me, that was one of the things which was like, wow. It's so easy. How could I didn't figure it out earlier? She was always saying, keep it simple, stupid.
Absolutely. And
tell it in 3 words. Tell it in 3 words. Sorry.
Yeah. Absolutely, I agree with you. Gavin, from your side, what was your best management lesson?
Within a very specific context. Most of the countries that we've been working in, not all of them by any stretch of the imagination, but most of them have been ex-communist countries with a command economy. And probably the best management lesson is to learn the skills to move people's mindset from command to actually listening. The customer comes in, you don't tell him what he's going to get, you find out what he would like. And it's an observation more than a lesson, but I would say I'm still learning that lesson, actually. How to listen is probably the biggest management lesson.
Brilliant. Yeah, I learned that what works in one country in Africa doesn't work in another country in Africa, and I primarily focus on this territory. Even the Swahili, when we worked in Uganda, is totally different in Uganda to Kenya, who's the neighboring country, also speaks Swahili, but it's different, and they speak more Shang. you know, as you were saying earlier, some of the language barriers. And then, you know, in other countries, like maybe Uganda, and you know, it's totally different. Tanzania, they speak a very, very clean Swahili. So you always got to think global, but act local, I find, you know.
Absolutely.
And I don't think that what worked, you know, in one country is going to work in the next. You got to understand your target market, and you got to do, you know, and mobile allows us these days to do precision kind of marketing, and it's really very, very exciting. But I think we're about to run out of time. I don't know if there's any closing comments or any questions from everybody. We've got 1 minute. Let's give the audience maximum value. Ineke, any parting closing thoughts?
I think that, you know, we are discussing next steps, because we as a panel and as people who have lived through all this and basically helped you to get your phone in your hands, we have so many more stories to tell that we will have a look at how to continue this. And I think, you know, have fun reading the book. That's the other one. Yeah, exactly. Because there's also a lot of fun in it. And thank you everyone for attending. Yeah, because it was new for us too.
Yeah.
And thank you, Jeroen.
Yeah, and thanks to the panel. You've been wonderful. I've had a lot of fun. I didn't even feel that the hour went past, and that's always a great sign. And I hope the audience enjoyed. And if there's anything that you want us to follow up on, or you'd like to email us any questions, or, you know, please go buy the book and interact with us. It'll be wonderful. Thank you everybody for your time.
And really thank you also, Nolene, and the team who made it all possible.
Absolutely. Thank you, Lady Bang. Excellent.
Great.
Thanks everybody.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye. Bye.